We touched on local authenticated users and remote users. And we touched on roles. So there's one more thing that we need to touch on, and that is the multi-tenancy in UCS. The multi-tenancy in UCS, meaning I have a customer that buys or rents a server from me, and I allow him to do everything he wants. Or it could be a customer, it could be another team in the same company, of course, depending on where you use it for. But I can split my resources in the system into different organizations. Organizations are the trick to do the multi-tenancy in UCS. So what I do is I place resources into organizations, meaning everything. So as soon as I start doing multi-tenancy in my UCS, I need to do that for everything. Because if I forget, I will not borrow resources from other organizations. I will always use my own resource in my organization to do something. So same here. To start, I need to create my organization. So I need to specify exactly what is my new organization. That is, so by default my root organization exists. That is an always existing configuration. And then second, I can have sub-organizations. So if I do a create and I call this RIC, this sub-organization is now created everywhere that there is the option. So behind here, sub-organization RIC, on policies, also on the SAN tab or in the LAN tab, anywhere that I see the organizations tab, it now holds the RIC organization. So I can just go into one place, create the organization and use that from now on. Now, if I start creating things inside this organization, by the way, there's no such thing as organizations for servers. So hardware resources, they cannot be put into organizations. Anything else that you can configure can be put into an organization. So like here, if I want to use the service profile template, I say, all right, create the service profile template. I'm going to call this RIC as well. It's going to be placed in organization RIC. I did not create a UUID pool yet. But for example, if I go to, I do not configure HBAs, but for networking, I created an a VNIC template, right? Remember? And I can use that. From the root, I can borrow resources. But I cannot borrow resources from other organizations. So for example, if I create a VNIC, yeah, I can borrow resources from the root organization. So like I said, I need to do everything myself. So for example, I create my own BIOS policies. I create my own MAC address pools, for example. I create my own VNIC templates. Everything is created per organization. So here I go into my organization RIC and I create a separate pool called RIC. I create everything with the same name. I add a new address, and that should warn me that this address is already used by somebody else. No, not yet. So it doesn't even check that. So I created a MAC pool here just for my RIC organization. And if I start creating a service profile template now, no VHBAs, just the networking part I'm interested in. Here I can configure a new VNIC, and now I am able to select my own MAC address pool. That MAC address pool is now only available from within the RIC organization. So in hierarchy, if I start drawing this, so we talked about airbag. So if we talk about organizations, by default we have our root organization. That is always existing. And in this root organization I have everything. So service profiles, pools, and policies. and I can use all those resources together. Now, under the root organization, I created something else called RIC. And in RIC, I can create service profiles, I can create pools, I can create policies, I can create templates, just like I would in any other UCS installation. I can create multiple of these. Each are their own separate management domain. If I'm running out of resources, so I have a MAC address pool configured here, but maybe my client, I do not allow my client to create MAC addresses of its own. I want to control that. Then I can create MAC address pools here in the root organization, and I can borrow things from the root organization. I can even create duplicate names. So I could create a MAC pool test here and a MAC pool test in the root, and that will pinpoint to each other. So that will automatically map to each other. So as soon as the pool test in my own organization runs out of MAC addresses, I can borrow resources from the same pool, the same name pool in the root organization. So there is some inheritance there. But usually what you see is people configure everything separately. But inheritance is only possible when going through the root or something going upwards. So everything is created there. Everything except physical resources. So everything but no hardware. Hardware is not put into organization. So there has to be one root user who will assign servers to server pools, for example, and to servers profiles. So there's no hardware allocation. So how do you allocate servers into certain organizations? You have to put them into a server pool, or you need to manually assign them. So some kind of administrator for the root organization needs to allow this blade belongs to this organization, belongs to this service profile, or to this server pool. And those server pools I can then use to create service profiles from. So that is my multi-tenancy. I can create everything I can within the UCS Manager. I can create that for each of the organizations. So here there is some inheritance in the upwards direction. So that is one way to configure it. So I have multi-tenancy by using all these different things. So finish. So I created the service template test. I say create a service profile, SP, create 2 of them. And now you can see that I created 2 service profiles under my RIC organization. So how does this look when I log in through one of these organizations? So I have my service profiles here. It's warning me about a wrong UUID. So let me configure a block of addresses here. That's okay. So let me associate a server to it. So that will be applied. Server 2. Boom. So that is configuring now. So now this blade is configuring, so I want to show you how it looks when I log in as a user in the RIC organization. Now I need to lay those mappings, right? Because now I'm just logged in as a root. I'm the admin, so that means I'm the admin for the whole group, for everything there is in the UCS. Locales are the things that can limit me in which organizations I have access to. So why I just cannot select organizations here. So like you saw, if I was configuring this role RIC for networking stuff, I need to configure locales. Why I cannot just check boxes here for organizations is a mystery to me, but you need to configure locales for that. What I do in a locale is going to call the RIC organization locale for some reason. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to assign organizations. So this locale is now mapped to the rig organization. Drag and drop, boom. So the rig locale can access resources in the rig organization. So again, it's a very easy mapping here. So why can I just not select organizations in the user configuration? No, I need to do it through this. So I need to assign organizations to a locale. Finish that. And then I go to my user configuration and I say, all right, hey, you user rig, you now belong to locale rig. And I'm going to make it an admin. So this guy, this user rig, is now the admin in this organization, in this locale. And every organization in the locale, it is the admin for. So apply it. Oh, of course, I cannot create an admin user. I need to select everything else. And I don't need other things. Yeah, I thought that. I cannot do operations. So I need to manually select what this guy can do. So of course I want to configure storage. There we go. So everything I need to configure except for the admin. So I cannot make it an admin in this locale. And I cannot configure operation stuff because operation stuff means administrative stuff. Just like the AAA role, I cannot configure AAA things when I am in a certain organization because that would allow me to override anybody else's logging in. So my user rig now is part of the rig organization locale and I have a number of roles to configure everything there is in my organization. So I'm going to launch a new instance of UCS Manager. Logging in. So what I see now is I still see everything, but I cannot change it. I can only change things in my own organization. So this is kind of a limit for this. Why? Because I can still see everybody else's. At least in the root, I can see other things. I cannot see things from other organizations, but I can see all the settings that are done in the root. So if I would create, I cannot create another organization, of course, but let me create another organization. Organization Steve. Now I can still see Steve, but I cannot change anything in its organization. So when I create something in here, so I can see all the configuration of other people, but I cannot change it. So this is kind of a limit because of this, because I actually do not want people to see my configuration, right? But I still see it. But the only place I can change that is in my own organization. But I still see everybody here. But I just cannot do anything with it. I can do things with my own, with the stuff that I own in my organization. And I can even select any available server. So even though I only have access to my own configuration, I can still associate to certain servers, to every server that is available actually. So I would need to assign servers to profiles or make them unavailable when I'm running in organizations. So it's still quite dangerous to give people access to your UCS manager because they can screw up a lot of things. So like you see, I only allowed organization RIC here, but still I can do quite some things and I can still screw up quite a lot of things. So if I check what kind of things that I have here, I think that's a facility manager role. Let me uncheck that. Now I can access everything actually. So what I checked for my user RIC is just server equipment. If I uncheck server equipment, I cannot access it anymore. That's the reason. So let me do that. That's not what I want, right? I do not want anybody to assign other servers to profiles, for example. So I still see everything, but if I want to change association, yeah, I can still configure everything. So I can select certain servers, not depending on which organization I have access to. So still it's a dangerous stuff, it's a dangerous configuration. I can limit myself in what I can change, but I cannot limit myself in what I see in the system. So this might be a request for a change soon. So no, this is not related to any Java cache, this is just how the UCS will work with organizations. So I can create some multi-tenancy, but it doesn't change the fact that I can allocate servers whenever I want to. So this is dangerous. If I have unallocated servers, it means that I can assign them whenever I want to when I'm in an organization. So that's not usually what I want. I want to have full control over it. Still, some people use this, and then you need to give some specific names here. So people do not know what kind of other departments or what kind of other companies are logging into the same system. But this is my local configuration, my organization configuration. Chances are that you're not going to see this in the lab. But of course it can happen, and then you need to know how do I configure those pools. I cannot borrow from Steve to Rick, for example. They cannot borrow resources from each other. All configuration is independent. I can only borrow going up in the tree view or in the tree. Those are the most important configurations that I can do. But for the rest, I can configure everything in an organization. Even management IP addresses. In UCS 2.1. UCS 2.0, that's not possible.